Oh, that's
And
cool.
yeah, I saw you went to Berklee, right?
Yeah, I went to Berklee College of Music.
So let me ask you this, and this part of the interview was going to be more towards like the middle of it, but now that we're talking about it, let's talk about it. Uh,
Hmm.
you were one of the first few people accepted to Berklee for rap, right?
Yeah. Yes,
So
I was the first to get accepted through an audition, and I was the second person there to get. The first person was I think Daria Wilson, and she won from like a Vibe magazine like contest or something.
mm,
And then I was the first person through like audition who got into the school and did the whole thing.
gotcha. Damn, dude. First of all, that's amazing.
Thank
But
you.
let me ask you this, and me having the music degree and having gone through the music school experience, my assumption is that a lot of the people who play the quote unquote real music, did you receive any adversity from people like that? Like, did people try to hold you back because they weren't like rappers or anything? Like, how was that experience?
No, well, no, because that's the thing too. Is like I think especially when you're around musicians who are doing it at because Berkeley's really high level. Like especially the year I came in, like 10% of people were accepted, and they started that was around the year when like colleges started to like okay we have to start ramp like the year after was when they started like okay we got to increase tuition to ramp up increase admissions to ramp up like the money we're getting because we're becoming more profitable. All that shit started to happen around like across the nation a lot more. um but specifically everybody at Berkeley is really fucking good at what they do. The school is rife with people who you're like holy shit, like stuff that you would think is like really top tier people do is just kind of the norm there.
Mhm.
And generally when you need to get to that level for music, you kind of realize because I thought it was going to be like that, and you kind of realize like people like most musicians hate that shit. Like when people go into music and you say that's not real music, anybody who works professionally as a musician and is doing it at a high level thinks that's fucking stupid, right?
Mhm.
So I got a lot of props from jazz teachers, like some of the biggest jazz names you've ever heard. I got to meet Harry Belafonte
Hell
while I
yeah.
was there. We did an honorary doctorate for Harry Belafonte, who, if you know who he is a fucking legend, and he gave me props. To like, who else? Like a lot. My teacher, my private instructing teacher, was an opera teacher, and she specifically figured out like she had these things where like you could if you she'll tell you hey point here and then look like this and then open your jaw and then you would hear a noise come out and you're like oh that's amazing. So she gave me all these technical exercises to help me like breathe better in my rap and to help me enunciate better and to help me do things, and I still use those to today. So there was a lot of it was a much more positive experience because a lot of the musicians there were really fucking good at what they do, and they were all like oh that's cool, it's a rapper. I'm not going to say it was like all like there were a few people who were like a little bit hesitant to that. There were some faculty who were like I don't know if that's really, there were times where I faced that. um but it was either hard line like this is awesome and we need to use this, or this can't be a part of our thing, get the fuck out. But it was a largely positive experience. My experience at Berkeley was a largely positive experience that I mean all the stuff you've heard for the last couple of years would not be possible without that. And it's very different now if you try to go to college at Berkeley. I mean that's not to say like it's a bad thing, but like the way just colleges are in general is not a great, it's not the best experience.
Yeah, 100%. And let me ask you this: did you know how to read music and everything before you went into Berkeley?
No, fuck
Did
no. And
did they
even
teach you
like even
to?
the most they try to teach it. Like that's the thing too, is like a lot of the quote unquote things of like, oh, you're a good musician are kind of like you realize what the actual barometers are for that
Mhm.
because people give you different things. Most people like when they're trying to judge like who's a quote unquote like real music or real musician. um Most like really fucking insane musicians like who are like working and doing crazy songs and pushing sonic soundscapes forward and everything like that, a lot of them can't read music.
Mhm.
A lot of them are really good at playing and just play by ear, right? So a lot of times, like for example, they taught me to write lead sheets. So in Berkeley, like when you're doing music, you can either write like full on sheet music, or you can write basically this thing that jazz musicians created called a lead sheet, where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, this is the groove. It's going to repeat like 500 times. Here it is, and every musician who just sees that sheet is going to be like, oh, okay, I know how to play this immediately, right? And so I didn't really know a lot about. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about theory. When I first came into like the theory class, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because they just assume that you know how to play piano,
Yeah.
and if you don't know how to play piano, you're kind of fucked. But I had this great teacher. His name is, oh my god, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. We're like really good friends too. I'm fucking mad. I'll get his name real quick. But like he was my Harmony 3. Harmony is what they call the music theory class there.
Mm.
Harmony 3 teacher. And he taught me, like, he made that so much fun. Like, once you learn that like harmony is just math, it's like the fucking coolest shit in the world. And I also had like a chip on my shoulder because like when I started doing Street Fighter music, a lot of motherfuckers were like, "Oh, you're not like real music and all that shit." And I had to deal
Mm.
with all of that, and it got to me. And I also grew up in Irvine, which was very discounting of rap music. So I was just like,
Mm.
I have this huge chip on my shoulder. Like, I'm gonna learn music. I'm gonna do all this stuff, and I'm gonna prove to you it's real. And also going there, most real musicians fucking hated that attitude that this is not real music.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't know how to read music when I got there. I still don't. I know how to, like, if you give me like 5 minutes, I can like, oh yeah, I know what's going on here, right? But most people just don't. You're not reading. It's inefficient in certain genres to like
Yeah.
write out sheet music for
Yeah.
what you're trying to do.
Yeah. No. I had when when that clicked for me is I wound up playing at Warp Tour, like just randomly,
Oh fuck yeah!
with Fishbone, Angelo Moore,
Oh
and
holy
those
shit!
guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this was in like 2010, I think.
Oh, that's
And
crazy.
they sent me a bunch of sheet music beforehand because I think their bass player, who I still
I'm gonna
talk
turn
to,
on my fan real quickly. Keep talking. Sorry.
do it up. But yeah, their bass player, Jeffrey Connors, I think his name is, who I still keep up to this day, like sent me a bunch of sheet music, so I just made sure I had my shit together. But when we were rehearsing before we went on, and Angelo Moore was just like, "Oh, I don't read that shit," and it was like one of those moments where it's like, "Oh, damn," just because like
I
no, it's just one of those things where like coming up, like I was a trombone player, and sorry,
sorry. Give me a sec.
no, all good.
Sorry. I realized that like my thing was like facing the wrong way, so I was trying to like flip it, and I
Gotcha.
didn't do it. I didn't do the right one. There you go. Okay, there you go.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
No,
Now we're facing each other.
fuck yeah. Well, high five.
High five. Yeah. Or wait, hold up.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, that worked.
Yeah. It was very smooth and seamless. It's like it actually happened.
Yeah. Am I synced or am I super out of sync right now?
No, you're good on my end.
Oh, cool,
It's gonna
cool.
look a little bit weird to you just because it's sending you the direct feed, so it's gonna look
I
like
got
it's a
you.
little bit behind.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, but no, it's really interesting because I came up learning trombone where it's like you play classical music, you play jazz music. It's like, oh, you have to learn this way. This is the way that it's done, and I think that's why a lot of
Yeah.
people show resistance to newer music, right? Especially people who either learn it however they can. Uh,
Hmm.
so I just find that so interesting that like it's always like you have to learn it this way because this is the way music has been taught for years and years and years,
Yeah.
and people are so afraid to step out of that mold that when somebody does, like it's like a mind-blowing experience to the point where like they either don't want to see it or like it's like completely
Yeah.
changes somebody's life.
Well, it changed my life because like I grew up like thinking like, oh man, Drake isn't real music. This isn't real music because I grew up in Irvine. But like a big thing was like going there. I remember saying that where I was like, I don't think Drake is real rap. And the drummer who I've kind of worked with for a while, he's fucking amazing jazz drummer. His name is Dimitri Albano, and he's a great pop drummer too. He was just like, yeah, okay, but like, shut the fuck up and listen to it because that's who you're competing against, and you have to you don't have to like it, you have to understand it though.
Yeah.
And I credit so much with that because they do this thing at Berklee where they called sound alikes, where it sounds so fucked up, but like you pretty much just recreate a song, but you have to create it exactly. So if you're recreate, so they made me recreate like "Crank That" by Soldier Boy,
Mm.
And like I fucking hated that song so much growing up because I was fucking, like, oh, gatekeepy. And they made, okay, so you have to find the exact kick. You have to find the exact steel drum, right? You have to find exactly what's playing here. You have to have, and your voice has to sound like Soldier Boy's, right? You have to try to push your voice to sound like that. And the first time I did it, I was just like, oh fuck, this is really great, because all of a sudden you understand the thought process of why. When you start sequencing things, you understand the thought process of why that's there. When you start saying his lyrics with his kind of intonation, even if you're not getting it exactly, you understand what the appeal of what he's trying to do is. Even if it's something like Soldier Boy, like, it's whatever, there is something there that is catchy and interesting for the industry. Um and like, even like stuff like Tupac and all that kind of stuff, when you do sound alikes like that, a lot of musicians do that because it's like you're eating somebody's brain. You're eating here
Mhm.
all of their information at once. And so I think, like, especially with like uh this is the way you do things. That's such a block for so many fucking people.
Yeah.
And it's a telltale sign to see that somebody, I don't mean asshole, but it's kind of a telltale sign to see somebody isn't like serious. There's a
Mhm.
lot of successful people who are like, who say that and they're like at the top of their game, and then you don't see them like 3 years later
Yep.
because they just don't. That's like the whole thing, is like music keeps changing. And I remember, I'm sorry I talk so much, but I
Oh
remember
no.
when I was in high school, and like a lot of the rappers I listened to in high school, uh I would like a few of them, and then a couple of them I was like, this isn't real music, this is trash, this isn't real lyricism. And then 9 to 10 years later, when like mumble rap and everything broke, people were like, oh no, that was real music, this
Mhm.
isn't real music, this is da da da. And now you see a lot of people who are going back to like Juice World and a lot of old people who are like mumble rap and like, this is real music, not this shit. And it's just a continuous thing because soundscapes consistently change and they come back and they morph. And um if you think that things are not like real, quote unquote real music, it's just a different metric. You're not listening. Most musicians are evolving. Like the musicians right now are at an insane level that you haven't heard. And if you don't believe me, ask any musician to play one of the old songs you like, and they will kill that shit. They will fucking kill that shit and be like, that was boring. And then
Mhm.
they'll move on to something else, you know? So
Yeah.